People in personal finance sometimes can say the most annoying things. Hey beautiful people, I'm Jordan and welcome to the Wise Money Women channel, where we help millennial women to master their money and transform their lives. So if you're all about paying off debt, saving more money, and getting yourself in a position to build wealth, then go ahead and subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we add new videos to the channel. Now in today's video, we want to talk about some of the personal finance advice that people like to throw around that are either really annoying or just doesn't make any sense for most people. And the first one that I usually hear folks say is that you shouldn't buy a car with a loan. You should buy a cheap $1,000 car that is super reliable to get you to where you want to be. Now, I totally understand where they're coming from. They want you to not have to get debt. They want you to not have this additional payment, which can impact your lifestyle. But at the same time, let's be real about the chances of you finding a $1,000 beater car that is in such pristine condition that you can drive down the road at any time without fear that this car is going to leave you on the street. I know my own limitations. I am not a mechanic. And I am much more likely to end up buying some lemon that they cleaned up really nicely rather than, ending up with a really stellar car. And I can say that because when I bought my first car, I didn't even realize they had put a junkyard transmission in the car. So I bought it thinking everything was all cool, only to find out 2 weeks later when I had to take it to the shop that the transmission was from some junkyard car. So I already know that they are gonna fool me because they know this stuff better than I do. So I feel much better to buy a used car and to buy it with a loan, because that way I will know that one, it's much less likely to end up leaving me on the road. I have my kids that I drive around with very often, and that is literally one of my nightmares. And two, as long as I am in a position where the payments and the terms are really favorable for me, I have no problems taking on a loan on a car, because the likelihood of me wanting to drop tens of thousands of dollars of cash on a car is not likely for me. So trying to tell people that they should buy a super cheap and, somehow amazing like new car is not really great advice to give folks. The second one I hear a lot of people talk about is to follow your passion and not just the income. Now, I totally agree. Again, that, having a life that doesn't have any passion or purpose in it is definitely one that is dreary and is much more likely to make you miserable. But let's be real, what is the likelihood of your passion project being able to pay enough money for you to be able to pay your bills, eat, take care of your family, and enjoy the life you want? And even if you are able to get your passion to be that, because, entrepreneurs do that all the time. It's not like it's impossible, but while you're in that stage of getting your company up and running and getting your passion into a place where you can turn it into a business and you can make profit off of it, you still got to eat. You still have to take care of your family. So unless you're going to put something in place to make sure that you're taken care of, it's really important for you to not just ignore the needs of your income altogether. The purpose of your job is to provide you with money, and your job is to take that money to fuel your purpose. So you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and ignore your income. You gotta eat, so you need to get money so you can pay your bills. Another one you hear folks tote around a whole lot is that you should always buy cheap. You should be super frugal, you should be saving money, and you should be taking the cheapest route possible to ensure that you preserve as much of your cash as possible. Now, I am naturally a frugal person, so I totally get it. There's a bunch of things that I am pretty much like, I am not paying retail price for that ever. But there are so many instances where if you take the cheapest route without thinking about it, you could end up in so much more problems. And a lot of them include when you're trying to get professional services. So things like contractors or CPAs or all those things, you end up in a situation where sometimes you do really get what you pay for. And it can end up being a lot more expensive trying to get somebody to fix somebody else's mistake. And that's assuming you even find somebody who is willing to take on your case if somebody else has jacked up your stuff so bad. So it's not a question of, well, should I take something cheaper or should I, always take the most expensive thing? That's not what we're talking about here. We're saying that you need to make sure that you can get the best service for the price that you can afford. Don't just pick the cheap one because it's the cheap one. Another one that we hear a lot of is that renting is throwing away money, or renting is paying someone else's mortgage, and so you should absolutely buy a home. I get it that when you are renting, you're putting money towards something and you're not getting that equity back in terms of a home and, just the pride of ownership, I suspect. But really, when you are renting, you are not throwing away money. You are paying for somewhere to live. And there's a huge part of it that people don't really recognize. And it's when you pay your rent, your landlord is in charge of all the maintenance that has to be done. So if your AC is broke, you call your landlord. If you are having bugs in your apartment, you call your landlord. If you find mold on the ceiling of your apartment, you're on the ground floor, you call your landlord. That is something that is definitely worth you considering renting for, because hey, when you have a house, those expenses are really expensive. An AC unit to replace it is expensive. If you have a problem in your home that has water damage, also extremely expensive. And it's not all the time that renting is actually an issue. There are some places where folks can live where it is actually much better for you to rent because it gives you more opportunity to save up to meet many of your other goals. You can't just look at it in a vacuum to say, well, renting is bad and buying a home is good. You really have to look at your situation, what your lifestyle is, where you want to live, what you want to be doing, and the flexibilities that you want to be able to have in your everyday life. So renting is not throwing away money. It's paying for a service, and it allows you to bypass all the maintenance and additional expenses that can come with buying a home, especially if you end up just buying a house because somebody said you should. Skipping your latte is one piece of personal finance advice that I absolutely hate hearing people say, because I get the premise that they're trying to get with that these small expenses that we make add up over time, and had we invested that money or done something different with it, then we would be able to, have $1 million after 50 years or whatever the math that they like to tote around. But the truth of it is, if buying that latte is a part of your self-care, if it's something that you do with your mom every Sunday so that you guys can catch up on what's going on, if you work the night shift and you really need premium coffee to get you going, to keep you awake so that you can function, or, heck, if you just really like lattes, then why is it that we should spend all of our time majoring in the minors and cutting back these little things that we do really care about when there's so many other things that we could be focusing on? We could get the big three down, which includes housing, transportation, and food. We could work on any of those and be able to get a lot more gains than what would come from just cutting out something you really enjoy. And then furthermore, this whole premise is on you taking your latte money and investing it. And how many people, when you don't buy the $5 latte, you're just gonna be like, yeah, let me just transfer this and invest it? No, most times people skip the latte and then they end up just spending the money on Doritos or something else anyway. So this idea that you need to cut out all the little things in life that you enjoy so that you can do this thing just really grinds my gears. It's just really frustrating to constantly tell us that every single thing that we do that brings enjoyment is bad. Instead, focus on the big things. Focus on getting lower expenses for the really big, expenses that are eating out your budget. And then focus on being really thoughtful of the things that you do decide to spend your money on. So if you love fresh flowers, buy your fresh flowers. And if you don't care about cable, cut the cable so you'll have the money to buy the fresh flowers. That's one of the big ones that we hear a lot of, that you need to stop doing things you like. I don't like that at all. So if you have other personal finance advice that you hear around there that you just don't agree with, or you think is really annoying or can be really frustrating, then go ahead and put it in the comments, because I would love to hear them so that we can all kind of tackle them together and be like, hey, is this really something that matters or doesn't matter? If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, because I like it, Google will like it, YouTube would like it, and it helps me out tremendously with this channel. And if you haven't already, then go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so that you can get notified and not miss any of the videos that we add to help you to master your money and transform your life.